So anyway, I get out of there. My lawyer comes and they released me. We had a couple conversations and he was like, listen, I hate to have this conversation with you, but there's two things that we have to talk about. Number one, my job is to only represent you here. I'm not going to represent you in DC. I've got some colleagues who I trust, two people, and you can call them. Here's who I would recommend first, and that's who I called first. Lana Manita, she was my attorney. I don't have a whole lot to base it on, but I think she did a pretty good job for me. I heard other nightmare stories about some other attorneys, and thank the Lord that I had been blessed with great jobs, great employment, great opportunities to make good money, that I was in a position where I could afford an attorney, and this wasn't going to cripple me and make me lose my house. I mean, I can't tell you how much, praise God that I was in that position. Right. So many other people weren't, and they got just terrible, terrible advice. So anyway, the other thing was, he said, listen, there are some things in your statement of facts. He's like, that don't look the best. There could be, he's like, I'm keeping up with the cases. There's a potential that there could be superseding indictments. And man, he told me that. I was like, that just made my heart sink. And I started watching every single case. And, so now, right. So now it was like, this is like this big roller coaster.
Right.
Cause I'm like, okay, it was that sense of relief. Okay, boom. Now that part's over. Now it's like, okay, could I get charged for something else? And now, I'm following everything, and it's like, okay.
Right on.
Long story short, I ended up taking a plea agreement. This was a time where if you pled, they dropped it down to the one Class B misdemeanor, the parading one. So I took that, right? Even though I don't think that I should have been charged with anything, but this is my lawyer's advice is, she's, Jeff, you're married, you got a family at home,
right?
You're looking at 4 misdemeanors with a total of 3 years in prison. Now you won't get 3 years, but my judge was one of the worst,
right?
And she said, and you're not going to win. You're not going to win. I know that even with that video, you're not going to win. You're going into hostile territory. You got one of the worst judges if you do a bench trial. And if you go in front of a jury, they all hate you. And she said, on top of that, your name is already smeared out there. So that they're going to take that back.
Yeah.
And they're going to dump so much discovery on me that I'm going to have to hire another attorney probably to handle this and go through this. And it's going to cost you $150,000 for what? So I was like, okay, yeah, I agree with that. But right. It was the fact that I was like pleading guilty to something that I didn't, but whatever, I'll play their game. Sure. Yeah, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
My sentencing was supposed to be in July of 23. And for some reason it got delayed. I think the judge got sick or something got delayed. So, but right after that, they changed. The appellate court made this decision that you could not charge petty offenses, which are Class B misdemeanors. The one that I pled guilty to, you cannot, sentence to prison and probation. It very clearly states, or prison, or like it says, a term of prison of not more than 6 months, or a term of probation not to exceed 3 years or maybe 5 years. I thought that was pretty clear. I can't imagine being a judge at that level and not understanding that terminology.
Right.
These are intellectually sophisticated people, right? So they're not dumb. So is it malicious? I mean, you can do the math on that.
Yeah.
So during that time, the appellate court says, yeah, you can't do that anymore. So my sentencing, which was on 9/11, they got resentenced for, right? 9/11.
It's crazy.
How appropriate for,
Right.
the worst terror attack since then. Or anyway, I'm one of the first cases that he sentenced. And so you could tell it. He wanted so badly. And the government was asking for 6 months for me. 6 months for walking into the Capitol building,
Right.
escorted peacefully,
Yeah.
and standing there and then complying with the officers to move. So instead, he basically, because he had such disdain for us, right? He'd said, I could put you in prison, but he's like, I don't know. Essentially what his argument was, is I would rather bog you down and be in your life for the next 3 years. So he sentenced me to 3 years probation with every stipulation you can imagine. Drug tests, of course, no weapons for a Class B misdemeanor. I can't leave the Eastern District of Virginia without 2 weeks of a notice. Literally every stipulation that they could think of. I didn't have an ankle monitor, thank goodness.
Right.
Because it wasn't house arrest. So that 400 hours of community service, ask me how many I actually did.
How many did you do?
Or maybe I should say, don't ask me how many I actually did, but ask me, but how many my probation officer thinks that I did. And $5,000 fine, which was the most that they can fine you. So at that point, that was, I got the harshest non-prison sentence that was out there. And I still think I may have the record for that, actually. Not that that's something I'm proud of.
Well, I hear you.
But my wife was like, thank goodness you're not going to prison, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, man, I don't know. Like, the government was asking for 6 months. Maybe he would have given me 3, and then I'd be done with it. Like, I'd almost rather have gone to prison at that point. Right. Cause I'm like, financially, like I'm okay with that. I sold my other company or stopped doing that and got into real estate full time because I was doing well with it. My broker was a great dude, knew that I was there, didn't have a problem with it. I kind of was like relieved in one sense, because it would have been so hard to leave my wife and my kids. Like,
right.
I would go away for a couple of days for work and I hated doing it. But I would have been done with it. Right. Yeah. No checking in, no probation, no them coming to search my house, whenever they feel like it.
Right.
So that was it. And then, I still had almost 2 years of probation left. Or I guess in March I was coming up on 1.5 years. And then, praise God, Trump won the election. Yeah. I do think that January 6th, and I think that are like, the big advocates for January 6th, and there's so many of them that have done so many great things and have been so vocal during this time, like Julie Kelly, has done such amazing things. And gosh, I'd love to meet her and just shake her hand or give her a hug sometime. But there's a lot of other people that have done great things. And, while there's always, we're a large group of people that have been in the media spotlight, and I've noticed that there's been some factions in between people. And I hate to see that. I really do, because I love every one of them. And if anybody asked me, right, everybody was there for a different reason. Everybody was in a different mindset. I know this. I know the vast majority of people that went there never, ever thought that it was going to turn out the way that it did. I think that the vast majority of everybody that went there had one thing, that had a loving, patriotic mentality, and never intended to make it turn out the way that it did. And it's such a tragedy what happened there, because there's so many things that went wrong. And I'll say this. It's so easy for people to sit on a sideline and call us idiots or whatever you want to call us and say, well, F around, find out, or you can't believe you did this. I may have said the same thing if I wasn't there. But there's something There was something so intoxicating about that environment. Whether it was the love, whether it was the fact that I had been on antidepressants for 2 years and numb and just not gave a crap, that I was now there doing this and had never felt more alive in the past couple of years, and all of these things, that it was like, man, like there was, I mean, again, I keep using the word like electrifying about it. I would have never thought, like I would have never pictured myself in that environment. I never would have pictured myself under the flag or in there, chanting or yeah. I would have been, that's not me. That's not who I am. But when you have this big mob mentality, big mob and all of this, it really does change you. And unless you've been in that, it's easy to criticize people unless you've been in something like that. Right. And then of course you take a very vitriolic situation and then you add an element of violence.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not good.
No.
And it just went so badly, so quickly. And there were so many nefarious things that day. And I believe in my heart of hearts that there were a lot of nefarious actors leading up to this that were scheming to do things and to make this go awry. And it's pure evil. It's pure evil what they did to Donald Trump for so long. And it's so evil that they would use 1,500 people, 1,600 people as pawns to scare so many other people into, it's not just us, right? The people that were protesting at the abortion clinics.
Right. Yeah.
They got lawfare. They're good. They go after these people. They want to send a message to fear. They want to put just terrify. That is terror. It's the definition of terror. And they terrorized a significant portion of the government and its resources against a small group of people to invoke terror onto an entire group of an entire ideology.
Right. Yeah.
So that's it, bro. That's my story.
Right on, man. I got to ask you a couple